My name is Katie Lipson. I'm 28 years old, and I used to believe the worst kind of heartbreak came from losing someone you loved. I was wrong. The worst heartbreak is watching someone you love slowly disappear while they're still alive, and realizing the person beside you doesn't care nearly as much as you thought they did. 2 months ago, my father was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. He's 61. Still sharp enough to joke with the nurses, still competitive enough to destroy me at chess and pretend he went easy on me afterward. Still the kind of dad who sends me weather updates, even though I can literally look outside myself. But now there are moments. Tiny moments. Moments that feel harmless until they suddenly don't. He forgets where he placed things, repeats the same story twice in 20 minutes, stops mid-sentence sometimes like his own thoughts abandoned him halfway through. And every single time it happens, my chest tightens so hard I can barely breathe. The doctors were honest with us from the beginning. This disease doesn't stop. It doesn't improve. It only progresses. Slowly.
Cruelly.
Like someone dimming a light, one flicker at a time. My mom has barely slept since the diagnosis. My older sister Rachel moved back home temporarily to help her manage everything. And every other weekend, I drive 3 hours to spend time with my dad before more pieces of him disappear. That's the thing nobody tells you about Alzheimer's. The grief starts early. You mourn someone while they're still sitting right in front of you. Around that time, I'd been dating my boyfriend, Ethan Cole, for about 10 months. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue last summer. Ethan was charismatic in the way people instantly notice. Loud, funny, confident. The kind of man who could walk into a room and somehow make himself the center of it without even trying. I liked that because I've always been quieter. At first, his confidence made me feel safe. Now I think I mistook confidence for emotional maturity. There's a difference. He met my parents twice. My dad actually liked him a lot, called him smooth-talking, in that amused dad way that made Ethan grin like he'd won something. I remember thinking, that mattered. 2 weekends ago, Ethan came over to my apartment after dinner. I suggested we watch a movie I'd been meaning to see. It was about a man in his 60s slowly losing his memory, while the audience experienced the confusion from his perspective. I already knew it was going to hurt me emotionally, but part of me wanted that. Sometimes grief builds up pressure inside you until feeling something painful almost becomes a relief. About 40 minutes into the movie, there's this scene where the father looks at his grown daughter and quietly asks who she is. Not dramatically, not loudly, just confused. Like he knows he should recognize her, but he can't. And the daughter's face completely breaks without her actually crying. That scene destroyed me, because all I could think was, that's my future. One day my dad is going to look at me exactly like that. One day the man who taught me how to ride a bike might not remember my name. I started crying before I even realized it. Silent tears at first. Then the kind you can't stop, no matter how hard you try to hide them. Ethan paused the movie. For one hopeful second, I thought he was going to comfort me. Instead, he stared at me with this weird mix of confusion and amusement. "Wait," he said, "are you seriously crying over a movie?" I wiped my face quickly. It's not really the movie, but they're actors, Katie. I stared at him. My dad literally has Alzheimer's, I said quietly. This is basically what's happening to him. He shrugged. Okay, but it's still kind of intense.
Intense.
That word hit me harder than it should have. Like my grief was embarrassing him. Like I was being dramatic instead of terrified. Then he unpaused the movie. That was it. No hug. no hand on my shoulder. No, are you okay? Just irritation that my emotions interrupted the film. Something shifted inside me that night, even if I didn't fully admit it yet. But when you love someone, your brain becomes very good at explaining away behavior you'd never tolerate from anyone else. So I told myself he was uncomfortable with emotional stuff. I told myself he didn't know what to say. I told myself I was being overly sensitive because of everything happening with my dad. The next morning, my friend Maya called me 6 times before I finally answered. The second I heard her voice, I knew something was wrong. "Katie," she said carefully, "you need to look at Ethan's Instagram story." My stomach dropped instantly. She sent screenshots before I could even respond. The first photo was me and Ethan sitting on my couch during the movie. I didn't even realize he'd taken it. Across the picture, he wrote, "My girlfriend cried during a movie. Imagine being that emotional." Then another slide. "I need a woman, not a golden retriever." I actually stopped breathing for a second. He knew. That's the part that kept replaying in my head over and over again. He knew exactly why I was crying. He knew my father was slowly losing his mind. And he still turned my pain into a joke for social media.
Publicly.
For entertainment. I sat there staring at my phone while this horrible cold feeling spread through my chest. Not just sadness,
Humiliation.
because suddenly I realized this wasn't accidental cruelty. It was deliberate.
Calculated.
He saw my most vulnerable moment and thought, this will get laughs. Maya told me people had already started replying with crying, laughing emojis. I felt sick. Now, I'm not confrontational. I avoid drama constantly. I'm usually the person who apologizes first, even when I shouldn't. But something inside me snapped that morning. Not loudly,
Quietly.
like a final thread breaking. So I opened Ethan's latest Instagram post, some gym selfie with a caption about staying focused. And I commented publicly. I wrote, "Imagine dating someone for 10 months, knowing her father was recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's, watching her cry during a movie about memory loss, then posting those tears online so strangers can laugh at them. I wasn't crying over actors. I was crying because one day my dad may not remember who I am. But thank you for showing me exactly what kind of person you are." Then I blocked him. No insults. No screaming. Just the truth. Apparently, the truth was enough. Because within hours, Ethan's comment section exploded. Maya kept updating me in real time, like she was reporting live from a disaster zone. His own friends started turning on him. One comment said, "Dude, this is genuinely disgusting." Another, "She trusted you with that?" Then, "You mocked her grief publicly? What is wrong with you?" More comments flooded in. People started reposting screenshots of his stories before he could delete them. Then he deleted the post entirely. Then his account went private. About 6 hours later, he tried calling me. Blocked. Then another number texted me. "You had no right to publicly embarrass me like that." I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. "You embarrassed yourself. I just added context." No response after that. For a few days, things went quiet. I thought maybe that would finally be the end of it. I had no idea Ethan was about to make everything so much worse. 3 days after the Instagram disaster, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I ignore unknown numbers, but something told me to answer anyway. "Hello?" "Hi, Katie. This is Lauren, Ethan's sister." The entitlement in her voice hit me immediately. Not concern, not confusion. Entitlement. like she'd already decided I was the problem before the conversation even started. "So, Ethan's really upset right now," she said. I almost laughed. "Okay. I honestly think you owe him an apology." That sentence irritated me so badly, I had to close my eyes for a second. I owe him an apology? Yes, you publicly humiliated him. You could have handled this privately. I leaned against the kitchen counter, suddenly exhausted already. Your brother publicly mocked me crying about my father's Alzheimer's diagnosis.
Yeah, so that was
He was joking.
its resolution.
My father has Alzheimer's.
My struggled.
I know that, but... No, I interrupted quietly. I need you to actually hear that sentence. My father is slowly losing his memory. Ethan watched me break down over that reality and turned it into content for strangers to laugh at. Lauren sighed dramatically, like I was inconveniencing her. You're being way too sensitive about this. That sentence stayed with me for days afterward. It's amazing how cruel people become once they decide your pain is annoying. He jokes about everything, she continued. That's literally his personality. And cruelty is yours? That finally made her snap. Wow, so you're trying to destroy his life now? Destroy his life. Meanwhile, my father was forgetting conversations halfway through them. The imbalance of that almost made me laugh. I told the truth, I said calmly. You put him on blast online. He posted me first. He didn't expect you to twist it into this whole tragedy narrative. My father's disease isn't a narrative. Lauren went silent for a second before muttering, "You sound impossible to talk to," and hanging up. I stood there staring at my phone afterward with this hollow feeling in my chest. Up until that moment, some small part of me still believed Ethan might eventually understand why what he did was cruel. But after speaking to his sister, I realized something important. People like Ethan usually grow up surrounded by people who protect them from consequences. The next day, things got uglier. Maya started sending screenshots around noon. Ethan had apparently begun posting vague stories about manipulative people weaponizing sympathy. Be careful dating people who turn every disagreement into emotional abuse. Some people know exactly how to make themselves look innocent. I stared at the screenshots in disbelief. He was actually trying to rewrite reality, and honestly, that scared me more than the original post. Some people in his circle bought into it too. A few "stay strong, bro" comments started appearing under his posts. But the problem for Ethan was simple. People had already seen the original screenshots. Once the truth exists online, it's very hard to erase it. Then he crossed a line I didn't even think he'd touch. On day 5, my mom called while I was driving home from work. "Katie," she said carefully, "did Ethan contact me?" My hands tightened around the steering wheel instantly. What? He called earlier. Every muscle in my body went cold. Apparently, Ethan had found her number somehow and decided contacting my mother during one of the hardest periods of her life was appropriate. What did he say? Mom sighed tiredly. He told me you were emotionally manipulative during the relationship. Said you were controlling the narrative online after the breakup. I almost had to pull over. Not because I believed him, because I couldn't believe he dragged my mother into this. He called you emotionally manipulative? Yes, said you were unstable emotionally. That word made my stomach twist. Unstable. As if grief itself were some kind of defect. What did you say? My mother actually laughed softly, though she sounded exhausted underneath it. I told him I know exactly who my daughter is. Instantly, my eyes burned. Then she repeated the conversation, almost word for word. Apparently, Ethan said, "I think you deserve to know the truth about Katie." And my mother replied, "Honey, my daughter drives 6 hours every other weekend to spend time with her father before he forgets her. I don't think she's the person I should be worried about." I had to blink hard at a red light because suddenly I couldn't see clearly anymore. Then Mom added quietly, "He said you humiliated him publicly." "And what did you say?" "I told him he humiliated himself the moment he posted my daughter crying online for strangers to laugh at." Silence filled the line for a second. Then my mother said softly,
Same.
"Katie, this boy isn't normal." That sentence hit harder than anything else had. My mom is kind to everyone. She excuses behavior constantly. So if even she had reached her limit, I knew this situation was worse than I'd admitted to myself. The second we hung up, rage finally hit me fully for the first time. Not explosive rage, protective rage. I called Ethan immediately from Maya's phone. He answered on the first ring. "Katie, do not contact my mother again." Silence. Then his smug tone returned instantly. "Oh, so now you want to talk?" "My mother is caring for a man with a degenerative brain disease," I said coldly. "She does not have the emotional bandwidth for your reputation management. You completely destroyed me online." "No, your actions did that." "You twisted everything." "You posted me crying about my father's Alzheimer's for entertainment. It was a joke. You knew exactly why I was crying." Silence again. Then he said something that genuinely changed the way I saw him forever. "You're acting like your dad dying gives you permission to ruin people." My entire body went numb. Not dying, disappearing, slowly. And somehow, Ethan still found a way to make himself the victim. "If you contact my family again," I said quietly, "I'll file a harassment complaint." He laughed once. "Wow, dramatic." "No," I whispered. "This is a boundary." Then I hung up. Afterward, I sat on the bathroom floor, staring at nothing, while my hands shook uncontrollably. Not from fear, not even from anger anymore. Just exhaustion. Because grief is already heavy enough on its own, and Ethan was somehow turning it into a war. After the phone call, things went quiet for 4 days. I thought maybe Ethan finally understood the damage he'd caused. I was wrong. On the 9th day after my original comment, Maya walked over to me during my recreational volleyball game and handed me her phone with a look that already told me I wasn't going to like what I saw.
I don't know.
Ethan had made another public account.
It might have some potential.
This time, he posted a long paragraph about surviving emotional abuse. No names, but enough details that everyone knew he meant me. He painted himself as the victim of a controlling girlfriend who used her father's illness to manipulate people emotionally.
Wait a minute.
And for the first time since all this started, I felt real fear.
Oh,
Because
right, I've been getting
accusations like
unlucky
that
lately.
stick.
Wait.
People hear words like manipulative
I'm
or
the
abusive,
average.
and suddenly the truth becomes blurry. I sat in my car afterward, staring at the post, while my stomach twisted itself into knots. Maya sat beside me quietly for a while, before finally saying, "Katie, you have the screenshots." She was right. I had the original stories. I had his messages. I had the timeline. So instead of making another public post, I did something much simpler. I sent screenshots privately to 3 people close to Ethan. One friend who'd defended me originally, one coworker disgusted by his posts, and his former roommate. I sent the exact same message to all 3. I'm not interested in a public fight, but Ethan is now accusing me of emotional abuse. These are the original screenshots and timeline. I just want the truth to exist somewhere outside my phone. That was it. No rant. No revenge speech. Just facts. And apparently, facts were enough. Within days, Ethan's emotional abuse post disappeared completely. Maya later told me even some of his own friends started distancing themselves after seeing the screenshots again. One of them admitted Ethan apparently had a pattern of twisting situations whenever consequences caught up to him. After that, everything finally went quiet. No more posts. No more fake accounts. No more messages. And honestly, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. Because while Ethan was busy trying to save his reputation, my real life was still happening. My father was still forgetting things. My mother was still exhausted. None of this online drama changed the reality waiting for me every weekend when I drove home. Last night, Dad and I played chess over FaceTime again. Halfway through the game, he forgot how bishops move. Then he laughed and said, "Maybe I'm just testing you, Katie." Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't. I laughed anyway. Before we hung up, he asked softly, "You still seeing that boyfriend of yours?" I told him no. Dad nodded slowly and smiled. "Good," he said. "The right man will never make you feel ashamed for having a big heart." After we ended the call, I wrote that sentence down immediately. Because one day he may not remember saying it. But I will.